Hello everyone, welcome to Train Simulator 2020. Yes, I can finally say that. You guys will probably see throughout the video just, some of the shading and lighting differences with Train Simulator 2020 that I'm very impressed by. I'm glad that we had a visual update to the game, and I'm sure I'll maybe do a review, I shouldn't say game, review of the sim, really. But anyways, welcome back to Donner Pass, our modernizing route. So in the last episode, you guys probably remembered that I included the Chicago route because of the crossing gates, and that meant more assets. And so I was playing around with the bridge abutment assets once again. Like you guys saw in the previous episodes, I didn't really like them because of the color and the texture. These looked a lot better, however, they had this like slanted slope thing on the back, and I didn't really know what that was all about for those props. So those were that, and then I found another kind of embankment spline here and tried that in this area of the bridge. This bridge I think wasn't too bad just because of the color, kind of that yellowy grass kind of matched up with like the sand. But that looked, well actually I think that was a 2-track embankment one. There's a 4-track one right there, a little bit bigger, but that had the gravel underneath it as well. So I don't know, we'll see how that goes. I'll see how I feel. That's what's nice about a creation route like this. There is no right or wrong, and there's also many options as well. Yeah, and that's nice having, technically at this point, 3 route assets in this modernizing route as well. So I do have a lot of assets that I can kind of switch around and see what looks best. I think that will probably stay for that. And I did just some minor tweaks and adjustments with the terrain, as well as, some crossing gates and things like that. You guys can already see the lighting is just crazy different. I'm pretty impressed by all the settings and whatnot that went into it. But yes, we are heading into Reno. Yay, we are working on the tracks. And I'd like to point out right now, I apologize if I seem very quiet. It is 10 o'clock on October 7th, 2019, or 10 o'clock in the afternoon, I should say. So I'm staying quiet, not waking everyone up in the house. But anyways, as I was going to say, yes, we are going back into the main city of Reno, and we are going to work on the tracks. Still using the Stevens Pass track. Again, I think these are the best textured tracks, and I love the concrete ties. For some reason, I used to not ever be a fan of the concrete ties. I don't know why. I don't know what was with them, but something lately has just kind of sparked interest in the ties. I think they're pretty cool. There's something about concrete. I don't know if concrete lasts long. I mean, wood doesn't last forever. As it can rot out and stuff like that. They have to replace the ties. I think it's the same with concrete ties, but there's just something with concrete ties. They do look pretty cool. They just look modern and whatnot. They just have this, fast kind of feel. Any high-speed freight, any high-speed passenger, you just kind of, you always see concrete ties. And the same thing for the West. When you go to a Western route, they always have concrete ties. So anyways, we go through Reno. Thankfully, I didn't really have to do too many adjustments with aligning track up. So thankfully through the city, that was pretty good. Over here you can see that, oh my goodness, the rails are so not close to what they are on the overlay. And that really bugs me. The road over there is curved better than the track. So yeah, yikes. I'm not focused on that for this episode. That will be indefinitely another episode. I just want to focus on Reno for now. But I do at least get... I lay tracks down originally here just to see if they do line up, and I think they do line up through the city pretty well. You guys will see that I do a lot of deleting and such of the tracks. So as I mentioned before in a previous episode, and for those who are aware of the area, yes, the rails through Reno here are trenched underground. You can even see that in the overlay there. They are not on the ground surface. So it's kind of tricky to find a starting spot and where to go. My first starting spot spot was getting the roads and a bridge, because that's the best way to, and I don't know what happened with the, yeah, I don't know what happened there with that gradient tool there. I tried a trick there to where you can select multiple gradient points and lift it up, but it wasn't working. Okay, anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. You know, this is really tough to just kind of, you know, there's no good starting spot, but I think for me the best starting spot is, okay, well, height is the biggest concern here. So you know, the road is actually lifted through there, and you know, obviously there's a bridge, so I did the offset to put a bridge. So there's my, I would say, starting point. And then from there, I just kind of, you know, obviously lining the bridge up here, you know, and then trying to figure out, okay, what is a good depth? And this is where, speaking of depth, like depth of field and really just point of views and stuff can be really obscured if you don't have any reference points. You know, just by lowering the ground at this point, I feel like, oh, maybe, you know, that's, you know, it's not low enough. You know, I put the rails down and I realized, holy cow, like, you know, it was like way too low. I go in and I add a car, and I, you know, add the you know, those cars, whatever they are. And, you know, I realized that, wow, there is a lot of clearance there for a car. And even if you go to Google Maps, I think even if you go to Street View in Reno, there is like an intermodal train going underneath. And it's pretty close to the bridge. That is, you know, very, you know, far under. So I put another piece of track down, kind of eye it up again. You know, again, there's no good way of doing this. So it's just a matter of, you know, for me, just trying to figure out that height, what height will work. So I think right there, that height is probably, you know, going to be good, and I have a lot of wiggle room. I did put a car up there, and, you know, there's still a big gap, but I think that's an acceptable gap. I don't, you know, again, it's hard to judge. It's hard to get, you know, a good reference point. It's hard to even find pictures or even videos of the trains going under, you know, or any rail fanning of it. Actually, there's someone in the Railworks America forums who does live in the area. I'm definitely be contacting him for pictures. But it's things like this where you just have to make your best judgment call. And I don't think there is a right or wrong. The wrongs are, yeah, you're too close to the bridge, you're too far under. But as long as you're in the ballpark, I think, you know, you should be good. So I do find a height, and then I do kind of flatten the area down a bit just so I have room to work with. I'm not too concerned about making the scenery pretty as of now. You can even see what the track that goes north there. Someone told me in a video comment what that old rail was, but whatever you said, that was yeah, that is the rail that goes north. It's an old main line and such. It might be still in use and whatnot, but anyways, you can see there, you know, there's, you know, terrain issues and stuff like that. Okay. I'm rambling on here late at night. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So here is where I get the rails down to the you know, trench down lower. I think the gradient percentage I have is negative 1.4, so it's you know, 1.4% grade, and I just kind of settled on that. You know, I think that will probably work. I mean, yeah, it's going to be crazy steep, but it's not, you know, too crazy. At least by right there, you know, as I, you know, get closer into the city, you know, the rails eventually get to the ground. So I think, you know, that was a good estimate for a gradient level. So you see here, the first attempt there, the rails went into the ground, which was surprising. That the yellow marker there, or the white or yellow marker, didn't go into the ground until much later. So I guess that just indicates the top surface of the rail. Yeah, so anyways, I just kind of adjust it to about the point that I like. As you see, I deleted a bunch of them again and then put another solid piece down, because I hate making multiple slime points and such. It just kind of messes if you're doing any gradient adjustments or anything like that, or if you accidentally bump rail, you know, it kind of screws it all up. So there you have this. And here's another important tool for you guys, and that is a smoothing tool. So you guys will see, obviously I went from one gradient level to the next. I went from a flat 0% grade to the 1.4. And so when you look at the rails closely, as you can see here in a second, you see there is this really, jagged edge. I don't know what you want to call it. Now you can use that gradient tool and just put a bunch of points down, but instead there's this tool where you select a portion of the rail, and then there's a tool to smooth gradient. And you see there it smoothly curves it out. Now it does just put like a gazillion gradient points down, but this just smooths it out without you having to manually do it. It's pretty much just automatically doing it. And again, this is also like there's no right or wrong as to how smooth it is. As long as it's not a jagged edge, you're pretty much good. So I did that up there, and I think that looked really good. I went back down below and actually had a really smart idea. I knew I had a problem up there with starting and ending that select point on the rails in the same spot. There are these marker things that they added. I think the creators of the other routes, they create these so they also have some reference point too. So I actually used that just to make both of those select points on both rails about the same distance and whatnot, because I think distance does matter a little bit here with the smoothing gradient tool. So as you can see, I did it on the other rail too, and this is the point where I just went in awe mode, because I'm like, wow, this is smooth. It looks awesome. It looks better than the first attempt that I had on this route. And I just kept going back and forth. At some point, my brother came home from school, and he's probably upset because he wanted his computer time, but I just kept showing him how cool this kind of this gradient was. So you see, I'm just kind of snapping the terrain back to the rails, and you see here it's having that issue where it's also snapping to the other rail up there in the higher level. We'll get to that. I don't know if we get to that later in the video. We'll see. But it's something that is a big factor in the route, just kind of working with the gradient and whatnot. Anyways, okay, actually, I just had some random thought that I'm not recording my audio. Yep, all right, I am recording my audio, so I don't have to worry about that. Okay, good. What did I miss? Sorry, nothing much. Anyway, so we do continue. Oh, boy, yes, 10:30 at night. Very tired. Anyway, so we continue the rails west into Reno here. And again, I'm just kind of flattening the terrain out to a certain gradient here, just so I can see what I'm working with here. Again, I don't, the visuals don't really care about at the moment. I just need, that canvas working space here to get what we need. And a lot of these props, again, I'm going to be deleting. It's such a tedious build, I feel like, because again, a lot of it needs to be updated, just, newer stuff, newer assets and stuff need to be added. So, yeah, that's gonna be a mess, but I'll make sure I get to that all in a video. Like I said, today we're just gonna focus on the rails. So, back to adding the rails on the lower level. But yeah, like I said, I was pretty impressed by how straight I was able to get the rails before. I think the first attempt I had on this route, I had like a curve in the middle of it or something like that. It was really bizarre, but yeah, so I'm pretty proud of where I had everything lined up. So I'm using this pointy terrain tool, which you can just kind of manually change. And this is one of those spots where I'm going to need to find some filler for under those rails over there. Again, just because, this is one one downside to the terrain in Train Simulator is, yeah, it's all squared off. It's stuck on this grid pattern, and so it's super hard to work with. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish there was more options too, like for more 90-degree, straight up and down angles, to, curves, to, I mean, you name it. I just wish there was a more precise terrain tool. So maybe Don't Tell Games, you guys can edit that and adjust, that, but it is what it is. We will work with it. All right, so here's another part of the route that's important here through Reno, and that is those retaining walls. Now, at first I tried the offset tool here, and I thought that, yeah, this would work. You know, we put the offset tool, it stays pretty parallel with the track. However, I realized that it also, yeah, of course, adjusted to the you know, the embankment and whatnot of the rails, the gradient of the rails, and also it wasn't even in the ground there on the very bottom. It's kind of floating in the air. And then, yeah, just working on the gradients here, I was like, okay, now that is just not going to cut it for me. So what I did was, I kind of used this as a reference, and then I just laid the retaining wall out by myself right there, as you can see, and then I just kind of extended that through. I had to kind of look through the ground. Now there's a way of doing this. You'll see it on the other side when I do that, but on the bottom there, it will show the spline length, and then if you start a curve, it will show like the curvature percentage. So instead of going into the ground, I just paid attention to that on the other side. So yeah, it's also another good tip there if you're working with splines underneath the ground. It was at this point I realized that, oh man, like the height of this, oh yeah, and then this turned backwards on me. I don't know why. It was really bizarre. So actually I did the offset thing just for this, and then I offsetted it down the tracks, and then I just used the, I don't know what the tool is called, the joiner tool there with the spline. And then I also just kind of geeked down here, and I realized, hey, those are like the exact same height, which was really cool. Yeah, and then I did that multiple times out there just to get it to that level. I really like that spline though. I wish it was taller, so if it was deeper into the ground, it would work. Thankfully, it's like at the perfect height. So I'm like, okay, yeah, like I just got really lucky there. There were no other retaining walls that looked as good. So the other side, the retaining wall doesn't go right up to the tracks because, well, you have Reno Station. So I did put a platform down. I put that spline down along the tracks and then kind of lined up the retaining wall against that. If you do look on Google Maps, it does stay that same distance throughout. There's actually on the west side, oh, maybe on the east side there, you can kind of see it. I'm not sure. But I know on the west side, you can kind of see there is like a little dirt access road, you know, for any maintenance crew, you know, that needs to go down there. You know, they have that gap for the platform, but then they also have the gap for, yeah, an access road for utility and whatnot. And then for whatever reason, you guys saw that I had the issue with on the other side of the spline where it was facing the other direction, but then somehow on that side it was facing the correct direction. So I don't know, that kind of puzzled me, but just going through there, it's like, oh, that looks so cool. Here's another cool thing. So I don't know what to do with the Reno Station. I don't really know what it looks like. I'll have to search pictures up. But I decided, this is what I did again in the original one, is I just took the station, lowered it, put it out from the wall, and then I took the top one, and then I just spun it around, and I stacked it on top, and there you go, there's Reno Station. I really don't know what it actually looks like, and I think Reno Station, they just added more underneath, but, you know, that still looks really cool, though, you know, just as a makeshift, you know, station and whatnot. I think that is pretty cool. I see here, there's still a lot of, I did a lot of this off camera as well, or during recording, I just cut it out, but it's kind of adjusting the terrain. You guys can see here, this is where terrain is going to be a pain in the neck. So I'm going to have to really figure out what a good embankment spline is, you know, I don't know. It's so tough. Again, this is one of the downsides to, again, just the terrain editor, but you know, we will deal with it. But I mean, as of now, after this episode, I am so happy with the outcome of the rails going through Reno there. You know, we just got to finish it coming back out, but I'm gonna have to delete a ton, you know, of props just so we have room to work with. And then I put rock details. That's crazy that even from the Google Map overlay, you can see a lot of those rocks. So you can pretty much be precise on any prop that you really place. So yeah, I just kind of added this detail just for the what's it called, for the cinematics and such like that. But yeah, that, you know, I'm pretty happy right there. We got, you know, the rails through Reno, and we got that out of way for the 4th episode. So I'm assuming the next episode, what I'll do, oh, and here's, you know, you can go check on Google Maps and see if you think that looks pretty close. I think that is, you know, you can't get it exact, but I think that looks really close too. That highway is definitely much taller than what it should be, but it's too late now. I will be keeping it like that. But yeah, I'm pretty satisfied. I could not stop going back and forth through here because I thought, man, this grade looked super awesome. So yeah, that is it from this episode. Enjoy the cinematics. As always, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed. Comment below anything that you might have learned from this video, or maybe any tips or tricks you want to give me, any advice that you might have. And as always, thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in episode 5 of Modernizing Donner Pass.